I love raw vegetables. Today is day 6 of recording 100 videos for 100 days of 2026. Today's video is a big deal to me because I'm going to be unwrapping the wounds of my life, my existence, living in a storage unit. I used to make it my identity at one point, but today we're going to be talking about living in a storage unit and what I actually went through, how I ended up living in a storage unit. Because if you may or may not know, I lived in a storage unit at 18 years old and I filmed it and I put it on YouTube and I got 10,000 subscribers from it. I've ended up on stage, I've ended up in the news, I've sold the story, I've done all sorts of stuff. And do you know what? It was a really interesting point in my life. For a few months I lived in a container. That was it, pretty much. I lived in a container. It wasn't a container on a lot, it was a Titan Self-Storage Solutions in Littlehampton, West Sussex specifically. But you might be wondering, how did I end up living in a storage unit, right? I've never really touched that bit of the subject, so we'll start there. So I was travelling. I was France or Spain. I was somewhere. I was just enjoying my life. I took a £5 flight and I just went, and it was an absolutely amazing experience. And whilst I was out there, I was renting a room at this point. I rented the room for a total of 2 months. And I was being overcharged. I was being charged more than the rent of my first flat to have that place. And the landlord messaged me. She said, "When are you coming to collect your things?" And that really threw me off, to be honest with you, because I never planned on collecting my things. I never planned on not coming back. I just never planned on leaving there either. And she said, "When are you coming to collect your things?" So I was like, okay, screw it. I'm going to collect my things. I don't like paying £500 a month in rent for a room in 2016, beginning of 2017. I did not like paying that sort of money. So I'm going to leave. I was homeless before. I can be homeless again. It's fine. If you really are just going to be like, she wasn't like, "Are you coming back?" There was no message like that. It was, "When are you going to come and collect your things?" I went, okay, screw it. I'm gone. So I went back to collect my things. I came back to England and I came to collect my things, and I was trying to work out what to do. I was like, do you know what, I'm just going to chuck my stuff in storage. I had no thought process. I was thinking, I'm going to get a van, I'm going to live in a van, and that'll be a great life, right? Join the van life community. This was pre-van life fad, before everyone was living in a storage unit. No, sorry, before everyone was living in a van. This was my thought process. I was like, I'm going to do that. My mum always wanted to do it, I'm going to do it. So I found a storage unit which wasn't far away, and I went there and I viewed it, and I was walking around it going, you know what, I could live here. I could actually live here. So I did. They had a kitchen on site for staff, and I befriended the staff, so they let me use the kitchen, and they had a toilet on site too. So what was the issue? It was 24-hour access. And the staff were only there sometimes on a Saturday, but Monday to Friday, and Sundays was completely free. So I could walk around in my pyjamas if I wanted to, which I did. So the landlord, she said, "Where are you going?" I went, "Oh, I'm just chucking my stuff in storage and I'm going to go travelling again." She was like, "Oh, okay." So I picked all my stuff up, filled my car up, and I went and drove up the road to the storage unit. And I was like, I'm just going to live here. My plan was, it was the first 2 months were half price rent. It was £90 a month for the first 2 months. So I'm going to live in the storage unit. I believe it was around 100 square foot. So I'm going to live there, work 7 days a week, and save up every single penny I possibly can, and buy a van. That was the thought process. And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And you know what? That is exactly what I did. I moved in and I slept on the cold floor. I slept around metal walls. And yeah, I might have been laughing and joking at the beginning, but honestly, the thought process was smart to move into a storage unit because saving money in it would be the next step in my future. But the realisation of actually doing it was really depressing. It was actually sucky. It was, what am I doing? So I moved into a storage unit and I was really sad about it, to be honest. I remember crying. I cried in the storage unit, I remember that. the metal walls were freezing. I used the duvets from when I was homeless living in my car, and I'd like folded them up on the floor and I'd put them down, and I was like cocooned in the corner like this was cold, and I unloaded the car. It was like 1:30 in the morning by this point or something, and that was it. It was time to live, I guess, in a storage unit. So the plan was, living in the storage unit, obviously you don't want to be caught by staff. The staff work 9 to 5 at the storage unit. So what am I going to do? I'll leave at 8 in the morning and I will come back at 5:30 in the evening. That worked for about a week. I overslept one time and I woke up and I could hear the staff doing the checks around the corridors, and they're like, he's still in there. That's what they said. He's still in there. So I came up with a story that I was using it as a space for video editing away from my family home. That's what I said to them, and they're just like, oh, okay, yeah, we get it. That was the gist of it, and they're like, yeah, it's fine. I'm nocturnal, I work through the nights, share a room with my brothers, it's just blah blah blah. They're just like, yeah, whatever, basically. But they knew. I know they knew, because they wouldn't have offered for me to use the kitchen if they didn't know. So I lived there. And things evolved in the storage unit. I moved some things about, I put some lights up, I chose a unit specifically next to plug sockets which were used for other stuff, like probably hoovering the hallways and stuff. And I plugged in a extension lead and weaved it through the roof and down. Further up, there was someone using a Wi-Fi booster for their business. Someone ran a business out of a storage unit, which is why not only did I know they'd be fine with me saying using it as an editing space, but it also meant I knew they'd be fine with me saying that I am using the plug sockets. And they're like, yeah, it's cool. Well, I never actually mentioned the plug sockets, but it was kind of obvious. I put a Wi-Fi booster. I got a Belkin one. I think I paid like £20 for it, and I plugged it in because there's a double plug socket. Plugged in Wi-Fi booster, and bada bing, bada boom. From not having internet for the first week in there, I suddenly had signal, and it was amazing. I charged my phone. I had a microwave in there. I had a TV in there. I even had a Nintendo Wii in there, and I was playing N64 games. I was playing Mario Kart in there. I was bringing friends over there, which was a weird experience as it was. My friend Curtis, who was in very old videos, he'd spent the night in the storage unit. I had other friends who'd come over, sore losers at Mario Kart, but you know, I had people over. I brought a girl back to the storage unit once. That was kind of funny. But the actual premise of living in a storage unit, I went in with the intentions to film. So I recorded all of the videos whilst living in the storage unit, and then they were scheduled to upload after. So I left around March 19th, something like that. So I scheduled for the uploads for April 2nd. First one was April 2nd because I didn't want it to fall on April 1st because people would think it's fake at April Fool's Day. So it was April 2nd for the first video, then it was a week. Then I did, I think it was 3 videos a week for a bit, took a week break, and then it was 2 videos for the last section of the videos. But I went in there with the intention to record. I thought I was recording my life anyway. I was recording being homeless, so I'm going to record living in a storage unit, and I didn't have an issue with that whatsoever. So I recorded it, and I pre-recorded everything, and whilst I was in there, I edited all the videos, and I scheduled the uploads. I didn't touch them. I knew what day I was going to leave the storage unit, and I did leave on that day when I was living in the storage unit. Well, actually, I technically left just after midnight because I was packing all my stuff up, but it then gave a 2-week buffer for me to, I guess, disappear, and I did. I went to Lincolnshire when the videos were going live. When the videos were going live, I was in Lincolnshire at the time with Curtis, and we were watching the videos go live. It was kind of crazy. So yeah, it was, yeah. A lot of people think the series was faked and I didn't live in the storage unit, but I did live in the storage unit. And I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of questions about it, like, it's stupid, why would you do that? Why would you leave your room that you were renting? And honestly, I didn't feel welcome after I was told to ask him when I was collecting my things. That's why I left. And then it's like, well, I've been joking about and I guess smiling while talking about this because it's nice to reminisce sometimes, the fact that my uncle got me a segment of a sofa, and I'd put the segment in there to have a chair in there, and then I used my old green screen from my gaming YouTube channel days as the floor, and then I broke into my dad's garage and I stole a radiator to plug in, which leaked oil, by the way. And it was just nice to... I guess it was nice to have my own space, but it was also really lonely. Like, really lonely and really cold, because obviously not only do people have lives, but I had to vacate at certain times and stuff. So I did live in a storage unit, and I did shower at the swimming pool, and I did eat in the storage unit. I got porridge and UHT milk. That's pretty much how I lived. So I cooked porridge in the microwave and I ate porridge. I had some weird videos on YouTube, like Pancake Day. When I was in there on Pancake Day, I bought some pancakes and microwaved them. There's another video where I microwaved sweets. I cringe at that sort of stuff when I think about it now, thinking about what I was doing, walking around in my tentacles jumper that I was wearing. But honestly, it was crazy. And then when I was there, it was snowing, right? And it got really cold. It's minus temperatures. It was horrible. And the pipes exploded in the building, and it flooded the storage units. And that was an interesting time, because it didn't get to my storage unit, but the floors were all flooded, and they were scraping away the ice and everything, and the pipes and the floor bowed in the kitchen and the bathroom and stuff. And the bathroom got put out of order, and I wasn't meant to use it, and I still did because I needed to. Lewis Spears. If you don't know who Lewis Spears is, he's a comedian from Australia. Great guy. I was actually mentioned in one of his podcasts not long ago, half a year ago or something. So that was cool, because I'd messaged him about my experience being in the storage unit, because he'd made a video on me in the past, and he pointed out like me slipping over in one of the clips, and that's purely because the pipe had exploded and the floor was covered in ice. So there's a nice little bit of trivia for you. I got to use the kitchen because I befriended the staff and they didn't lock the door. I don't know if they're meant to lock the door, but they never did lock the door. There wasn't an oven or anything, but there was a sink and a space. So I would work 7 days a week as a takeaway delivery driver, and sometimes I was able to get free food. The boss didn't like me, so he'd always give food that I didn't want, like extremely spicy food and stuff. So I would go there. I was bullied by my boss at that job. I ended up walking out of that job in the end. Well, I confronted him specifically, and that was a whole issue. I confronted him because I listed all the dates and times of everything that ever happened, but that's a whole other issue. But yeah, so I was in the storage unit, and I did my washing up in the storage unit at 1, 2 in the morning, and I would do my best to leave early morning when it was Sundays and no one was there. It was great because I got to have a lay-in. There was no windows, which was difficult sometimes for daylight because I didn't know what time of day it was. And I would walk around the storage unit. Sometimes I'd skateboard down the corridors of the storage unit. And you might think, hang on, this is a camera building. How did you get away with this? Honestly, I don't know. I definitely took the mick while I was there. That's not a joke. But I have no idea how I got away with it. The only thing I can genuinely believe how I got away with it was the cameras weren't checked. They had cameras, so if there was a theft or anything, they could go through the footage. But there was no one sitting there 24/7 watching the cameras. That's the only reason why I thought I was getting away with it, and I did. I did get away with it. There was one time where I woke up to rattling, to banging on the door. They were like trying to break it open when I was in there. And it was people trying to break into my unit while I was sleeping in there. And I pretended I was video editing and I had headphones on, but it was really, really scary. And I started banging back and screaming at them. I'd heard them previously, a couple hours prior, because they were using a unit on the other side of me. I don't know if they heard that I was in there or anything, but I kept to myself and I was pretty silent. So unless I was snoring or something, I don't know why they would have thought I was in there. But the door lock is something which I get questioned about a lot. How did I lock the storage unit? And if you watch the videos, you'll see how I locked it. I used 2 bungee cables, right? So what I did was, it was like a gate lock. So I would unlock it, and the lock that was on the gate lock, I would lock it on, right? So if you walked past at a glance, you'd still see a lock on the door and you wouldn't think anything, and you couldn't lock the door, right? So on the inside, I had these 2 bungee cables because there was like these thin metal bars that went down the side, and I hooked one onto the door, and then I hooked one onto the wall. So if you tried to open it, it was tensioned in, and I'd put one at the top and then one further down. And it worked like a charm. It worked like, are you breaking a bungee cable off, which is like hooked round a wall? Right, you're trying to open a door, you've got to snap a whole bungee cable at 4 clips, your curved hook bits, you're trying to break it. It's not going to happen. So I got away with it. I lived in a storage unit, and I'd like to think that the staff knew and didn't say anything, but I don't know if that's the case. I got confronted at a petrol station a while later. I was at Morrison's petrol station, and I didn't recognise her at first. I thought she was someone I worked with at a previous job. And then the screaming started. Like, she walked up, I was like, "Oh, you're right." And she was just screaming. It didn't clock. And I was like, oh, wait. Oh, and then her husband came over saying that, like, she's getting fired and stuff. Because basically, I'd scheduled all these videos, and I'd uploaded the videos. And the first thing that happened was physically thousands of phone calls were made to the storage location, and it kind of ruined their lives. And I said I've done stupid things, and maybe I shouldn't have. I didn't release where I was staying. I'll say it now. Titan Self Storage Solutions in Littlehampton, West Sussex. And I only say that because that is common knowledge out there. People caught it in the videos. People worked out where it was. I believe one sign was caught, and that kind of sucked. So I do apologise if they ever see this video, or if they watch my videos still, because I'm aware they were. I do genuinely apologise, because I think I did ruin your lives at one point. We're going back 8 years now, 9 years. So I do genuinely want to apologise for it. I never intended to hurt anyone or ruin anyone's lives or make anyone lose any jobs. That being said, I got away with living in a storage unit, and no one said anything. So you didn't do your job correctly, technically, but I also shouldn't have been there. And I'm aware of that. And then a law got put in about living in storage units and making it illegal, which was kind of funny. I assume that was because of me, because, again, the story went viral and was everywhere and in the news, and I sold the story. And the story is being used in universities around the world for projects. I think there's a university in the Philippines and there's one in the Netherlands where my content is used, and I know that because I got paid for it. So, yeah, I lived in a storage unit, and it financially benefited me. I won't deny that whatsoever. Living in a storage unit was my past, yes, but it also built this YouTube channel and changed my life, and realised I could get away with anything. And then after that, after I'd saved all the money and I'd bought a van and I left, I did everything I wanted to, really. I started sneaking into hotels to use their swimming pools and spas and their free breakfast and everything. I just started doing things because I got away with living in a storage unit, and I got away with it again. And did I ever get recognised for living in a storage unit? Yeah, loads of times I got recognised. I probably hundreds. I've taken a couple hundred photos with people easily. This one time there's these 2 girls across the road, and they're just screaming, oh my god, and then they commented on something I uploaded, and I was like, okay, that was them. So that was kind of funny. Another time was a couple of years ago. I was in a park with my friends and their children and my son, and I was messing about. And this guy comes over, and he's like, "Are you from YouTube?" And I was like, "Oh no." So yeah, I definitely got recognised. I got recognised in Wetherspoons as well by a worker. That was kind of funny. I know you. You lived in a storage unit. I'm just sitting there going, yep, that was me. So yeah, it brought a lot of publicity, living in a storage unit, and it brought a lot of financial gain. I'm not going to deny that whatsoever. But it did also affect some people's lives, and of course it affected businesses, and it affected the storage units in the world completely. It destroyed the industry partly, you know, security reasons and stuff, and it looks like I'm probably the reason for a law change as well, which is kind of funny. But from my experience from actually being there, it was cold, it was lonely and depressing. Would I do it again? If I needed to, yes. Yeah, sure I would. I've rented storage units since, and I've been denied in some places, and I've been recognised in others, and I had a manager come down and greet me. He's like, "You're not living it, are you?" It's like, no, don't worry, I'm not doing that here. I'm just literally trying to store stuff. So I've had some ups and downs, yeah, and I'm okay with that. I'm perfectly fine with it, you know. It's living in a storage unit built who I am today. It was cold. I cannot stress how cold it was. I slept on the floor. I was able to get an air mattress at one point, but it was so cold living in a storage unit. It was so cold. And I had to sneak into swimming pools to shower, so that's not great. On the plus side, I was grateful they had water facilities there, and I was grateful that I was able to steal their electric while I was there. So there are some benefits, sure. Would I recommend anyone else living in a storage unit? If you really needed to, yes. I did it for a financial benefit. I did it purely safety, and I had belongings, you know, and I was able to save money. I worked 7 days a week, and I saved up my money, and I bought a van, and I went travelling, and it was great. So look at it how you will. I used living in a storage unit as a stepping stone to something greater, something better. And I'd like to think I did that, because if I didn't live in a storage unit, I wouldn't have got a van. If I didn't get a van, I wouldn't have gone travelling or located myself in certain areas. If I didn't do that and the van broke down, then I would have never met someone through YouTube who I bought a caravan off. And if I never had the caravan, I would have never had the friends from the van who, because of my travelling, of people I'd met. If I never had the caravan, I had a friend who moved the caravan. I only made that friend because of living in a storage unit and being able to buy a car, funnily enough, because of the fact there's lots of connections. Basically, if none of that happened, I wouldn't have my son. It's the butterfly effect. Because I lived in a storage unit, I became a dad. I can detail a whole path of things that happened which led up to it. But I do not see another way that it would have happened for me to end up with the life I had, travel the way I did, meet the people I have, make the friends I had, and ultimately locate myself in an area, convince a friend to get a job in that area, who worked at a place where my son's mother worked. So, you know, it's life. It's life. And if I never lived in a storage unit, none of that would have happened. If I didn't live in a storage unit, I probably would have just left the country and not come back. But I'm glad I did. I'm glad I got that experience. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, do all that sort of stuff. Hit the bell notification. And if you have any questions about me living in a storage unit, let me know in the comments below, because I would really like to know. Adios, my Miss Amigos. I shall see you guys all in the next video, which will be up tomorrow. Yeah, I think I covered everything. There's loads of details I missed, I'm sure, but I can always make a part 2. Goodbye.